The world never plays fair. No matter how honest you are, someone will betray you. No matter how loyal you stay, someone will test your limits. And no matter how much you care, someone will use your kindness as a weapon against you. That is the brutal truth. The battlefield is invisible, but it's everywhere, in conversations, in boardrooms, in friendships that pretend to be real, in relationships that look like love but smell like power. You are not living in a world of fairness. You are living in a world of leverage. And in this world, the weak are not destroyed because they are bad people. They are destroyed because they refuse to understand how the game works. Those who survive are not the coldest. They are the most controlled. Those who rise are not the most ruthless. They are the most self-aware. They understand the laws of power without losing the laws of conscience. They play the game, but they do not let the game play them. That is what I call dark intelligence, the kind of awareness that listens more than it speaks, observes more than it reacts, and strikes only when it must. It is the quiet voice that whispers, "Stay calm, stay dangerous." It's not evil, it's evolved. But before we go further, let me be crystal clear. This is not about manipulation for destruction. It's about protection. It's about learning how to survive a world that rewards masks and punishes honesty. You are not here to become a villain. You are here to become unbreakable. By the end of this journey, you will see power differently, not as control over others, but control over yourself. You will learn to use stillness as strategy, silence as weapon, and patience as your most loyal ally. Drop this in the comments. I control the darkness, it does not control me. Now, let's unlock the secrets Machiavelli tried to hide in plain sight. Power begins with perception. You can be righteous, intelligent, even extraordinary. But if you don't understand how people see you, you will always be at their mercy. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He saw how kings lost their thrones not because they were evil, but because they appeared weak. He knew that morality, in the eyes of others, was never about truth. It was about image. Machiavelli once said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." That single sentence contains one of the coldest, sharpest truths about human nature. People judge in seconds. They don't wait to understand your intentions. They don't study your inner goodness. They see what's on the surface, your tone, your confidence, your posture, your words, and from that, they decide whether to trust you, follow you, or use you. The problem is, most people think being moral automatically earns them respect, but it doesn't. Being good without strength just makes you safe to ignore. Here's what happens in the real world. You show your honesty, you speak your mind, you help people, and yet somehow they walk all over you. They borrow your kindness and pay you back with silence. They mistake your patience for weakness. They mistake your humility for insecurity. And while you're still trying to prove your goodness, someone else, colder, smarter, calmer, is using their image to command the room. That's the difference. They wear morality like armor. You wear it like a chain. The mask of morality doesn't mean faking kindness or pretending to be good. It means learning how to project integrity without giving everyone access to your real self. Machiavelli teaches us that to survive among wolves, you can't walk like a sheep. You must understand how the world interprets virtue, not as purity, but as strength under control. Most people do it wrong. They overshare. They try to be transparent, to prove they have nothing to hide. They think openness builds trust. Instead, it builds vulnerability. When people know everything about you, your beliefs, your fears, your emotional triggers, they don't admire you, they measure you. They calculate how to use what they know. The smarter move is quiet projection. You let your actions imply virtue. You let your consistency speak louder than your explanations. You act with dignity even when no one's watching. not to impress others, but to build inner gravity, that invisible force that makes people respect you without knowing why. This doesn't mean becoming fake. The key principle here is alignment. You align your inner truth with outer strength. You don't let people see your doubts until you've mastered them. You don't speak your pain until you've processed it. You don't react just because someone provokes you. When you act from control, people call you disciplined. When you act from impulse, they call you weak. The difference is not morality. It's mastery. Think about leaders who inspire loyalty. They're not loud about their virtue. They're calm, deliberate, measured. You don't know exactly what they believe, but you can sense their moral center. You trust them because they radiate composure. That's the mask, not deception, but direction. A visible sign that you know who you are, and you won't let emotions sabotage that image. Now here's where it gets powerful. When you master this mask, you start to control the emotional temperature around you. In a heated argument, your calmness becomes dominance. In chaos, your composure becomes command. People start to anchor themselves to your stability because your restraint feels like authority. That is moral strength, not loud virtue signaling, but silent control, but never forget the balance. This doesn't mean being cold or calculating to the point of emptiness. The mask of morality should protect your humanity, not replace it. You're not hiding who you are, you're shielding your integrity from the noise of manipulation. Remember this, true morality isn't about being harmless. It's about having the power to harm and choosing not to. So wear your morality like a warrior, wears armor polished, protective, but never heavy enough to slow you down. Because, in the game of power, perception shapes reality, and the strongest morality is the kind that stands in silence, unshaken, while the world keeps guessing what truly drives you. Power is not about how much you care, it is about how carefully you choose to act. Emotion clouds judgment. When you let anger, fear, or desire dominate your decisions, you are no longer in control. You are reacting, and the world will always react faster than you. Detachment is the skill of observing without losing yourself, of feeling without being consumed, of engaging without collapsing under pressure. Machiavelli once said, "A wise ruler ought never to keep faith, when by doing so it would be against his interest." Pause here for emphasis. He did not say a ruler should be cruel or deceitful for pleasure. He said a ruler must act with clarity, unclouded by the illusions of obligation or sentiment. Detachment is not cruelty. Detachment is clarity. Think about everyday encounters. A colleague takes credit for your work. A friend betrays your confidence. A partner manipulates your emotions to get what they want. Most people respond instantly. They shout, they plead, they cry, they argue, they let the storm inside dictate their words and actions. And in that chaos, they lose more than they gain. Detachment would let you step back. You see the action for what it is, an attempt to control you, and respond strategically, not emotionally. Here's the psychological truth. Emotions are contagious, but detachment is contagious too. When you remain calm in conflict, others are forced to mirror your composure. When you detach, you see opportunities. Others miss. You notice patterns, predict moves, and position yourself where they cannot anticipate. You are no longer a participant in the chaos. You are the observer and, when necessary, the decisive actor. Most people fail because they confuse detachment with indifference. They think not reacting means they do not care. But the key is measured care. Detachment allows you to value what matters without giving power to everything else. You care enough to act when it counts, but not enough to be paralyzed by trivial provocations or manipulations. Instead of collapsing under pressure, you choose precisely where to invest your energy. Detachment is not a shield for laziness or passivity. It is a tool for mastery. It allows you to navigate personal, professional, and social landscapes with a calm authority that others instinctively respect. In negotiations, detachment prevents desperation. In leadership, it prevents rash decisions. In relationships, it prevents exploitation. You control the emotional flow, and in doing so, you control outcomes. Here's where most people go wrong. They react immediately, seeking emotional justice or validation. Instead, you can respond strategically. You recognize the motives behind actions, evaluate potential consequences, and decide whether engagement is necessary. You act only when the return justifies the risk, not when your ego demands it. That is the difference between someone driven by emotion and someone driven by strategy. This doesn't mean you suppress your humanity. Detachment should never turn into detachment from yourself. You still feel, you still empathize, but you channel those feelings with precision. The key principle here is measured engagement. Observe without drowning in the chaos, respond without becoming the chaos, and act without emotional bias. Think of detachment as a lens. When you look through it, the world sharpens into patterns, and people reveal themselves without your ego distorting the truth. You begin to recognize manipulation, hidden agendas, and openings for influence that would otherwise be invisible. Remember this: true power comes from the ability to care without collapsing, to act without reacting, and to hold the world at arm's length just enough to see clearly. Detachment is the silent strength that lets you win the battles others lose because they are blind to their own impulses. Master it, and you begin to act with precision, poise, and purpose, always in command, always unshaken. In a world obsessed with noise, talking, and constant explanation, silence is your secret weapon. Most people believe that speaking more proves intelligence, honesty, or competence. They flood conversations with words, trying to justify themselves, impress others, or force respect. But here is the brutal truth. Words reveal more than they conceal. Every time you speak, you leave traces of your thoughts, your fears, and your intentions. Silence, on the other hand, hides everything you don't want revealed, while amplifying everything you do. Machiavelli once said, "A wise ruler ought to keep his own counsel and never disclose his plans to others." Pause here. That is not advice reserved for kings in palaces. It is a law for anyone navigating power, influence, or survival. Silence is the armor of strategy. It is the space in which you observe, calculate, and prepare, while others exhaust themselves, exposing their weaknesses. Think about the last time someone asked you a personal question or probed your opinion in a tense setting. The instinct is to respond immediately, to explain, defend, or justify. Most people fall into this trap. They spill emotions, disclose intentions, and give others ammunition. A silent pause, even just a few seconds, can completely shift the dynamic. Silence forces the other person to fill the vacuum. They start revealing more than they intended. They project, they guess, and you gain insight without a word. Here is where the psychology deepens. Silence is not emptiness, it is presence. It communicates confidence, control, and authority without aggression. People unconsciously respect those who can hold still while the world rushes. They are drawn to the calm because it signals a mind that is untouchable, a person who will not be manipulated by pressure or provocation. Your silence becomes magnetic. It is a quiet command that says, "I am watching, I understand, I decide when to act." Most people misuse words because they fear judgment. They think they must explain, defend, or justify to maintain credibility. But here is the contrast. Speaking less does not make you weaker. Instead, it gives you leverage. Instead of rushing to answer, you observe patterns, detect motives, and wait for the right moment. You do not react, you respond. Most people talk to be understood. You speak to be strategic. Now consider real-life scenarios. In meetings, those who dominate conversation often reveal uncertainty in subtle ways, hesitation, over-explanation, contradictions. The person who listens and remains silent, however, gains a unique advantage. Every word from others becomes a clue. Every slip is a map to strategy. In personal relationships, silence allows you to gauge true intentions. Friends, colleagues, even adversaries reveal their character when confronted with quiet observation. You begin to see what they desire, what they fear, and where they will bend. This does not mean detachment or coldness. Silence is a tool, not a mask for apathy. You still feel, you still care, but you control the timing and the flow of revelation. The key principle here is intentionality. Speak when it adds value, act when it alters outcomes, and otherwise hold your counsel. Strategic silence multiplies influence because it lets others underestimate, misjudge, and reveal themselves while you remain unexposed. Remember this, the power of silence is underestimated by those desperate to be heard. Your restraint signals mastery. Your calm invites respect. Your quiet observation allows you to see opportunities invisible to the loud and reactive. In a noisy world, silence is your strongest ally. A subtle force that disarms manipulation, protects your intentions, and multiplies authority without a single aggressive word. Hold it like armor. Use it like a weapon. And understand this, the less you reveal, the more control you maintain over the outcomes that matter most. Silence is not emptiness, it is command. Kindness is one of the most misunderstood tools in the game of power. Many people believe that being kind makes them virtuous, that generosity and warmth automatically earn trust and loyalty. But here is the harsh truth. Kindness without calculation is weakness disguised as virtue. It exposes you to exploitation. It allows others to take advantage while you give freely, thinking goodness alone will protect you. Real influence does not come from uncontrolled benevolence. It comes from strategic, intentional, and deliberate kindness. Machiavelli once said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." Pause here for emphasis. That does not mean kindness has no place. It means that kindness must be wielded with awareness, not naivety. Genuine warmth is a weapon when it is measured, targeted, and purposeful. It disarms your rivals, reduces resistance, and creates a field where influence can flourish, but only if it is calculated. Let's examine the reality around you. You help a colleague with a critical task, expecting gratitude or reciprocation. Instead, they quietly undermine you to look better in the eyes of others. You forgive a friend's betrayal, believing it will restore the bond. Instead, they test the boundaries of your tolerance again. Most people act in kindness as if it is a moral shield. They believe their generosity makes them untouchable. The world does not work that way. People respond not only to actions, but to intention, timing, and perception. Calculated kindness works differently. You help someone, but you choose when, where, and how to offer it. You observe the effect your generosity has on others. You measure the return, not only in favors, but in influence, loyalty, and strategic positioning. You do not give blindly. You give to strengthen relationships that matter, to earn trust where it counts, and to create obligations that can later balance the scales in your favor. This is not manipulation. It is strategy. It is giving with purpose rather than giving with hope. Most people make the mistake of confusing kindness with weakness. They show empathy without boundaries, offer support without discretion, and assume that goodness alone will protect them from harm. Instead, you apply kindness like a precision instrument. You know when to offer comfort, encouragement, or assistance. You know when to withhold it. You know that selective generosity communicates both strength and sophistication. People notice this subtly. They feel it intuitively. You are not needy, you are discerning. You are not weak, you are in control. Consider social dynamics in professional settings. A leader who randomly praises every employee may seem warm, but they dilute influence. The one who compliments strategically, acknowledges effort when it counts, and rewards action with calculated generosity becomes memorable. That person's kindness carries weight, signals insight, and builds allegiance without lowering standards. In personal relationships, the same principle applies. By offering help or forgiveness selectively, you teach boundaries and command respect without losing your humanity. This does not mean becoming cold, detached, or manipulative in a morally empty way. The key principle here is alignment. Your actions of kindness must reflect both your values and your strategic understanding of the world. You are still empathetic, still humane, but you are no longer vulnerable to exploitation. You are deliberate, not reactive. You offer warmth without being consumed by expectation. You create bonds without surrendering leverage. Remember this. The art of calculated kindness is mastery, disguised as generosity. When you give intentionally, you gain trust and respect simultaneously. When you withhold intentionally, you protect your power and avoid unnecessary exposure. Real influence lies not in blind benevolence, but in strategic humanity. The ability to act with compassion while maintaining control, always aware that the world rewards those who know not only how to give, but when and to whom. Use kindness as armor and as a key. Let it open doors, soften defenses, and build loyalty, but never let it make you vulnerable. True power comes from warmth with boundaries, generosity with foresight, and humanity paired with control. That is the distinction between those who are loved and exploited, and those who are loved and respected. In the realm of influence, perception often outweighs reality. You could be brilliant, ethical, and disciplined. Yet if others perceive you as weak, indecisive, or unreliable, you will be treated as such. Human beings rarely judge by the truth of your actions. They judge by what they see, what they feel, and the story they build from your presence, your tone, your gestures, and your reputation. In short, your power begins not with what you are, but with how others perceive you, Machiavelli once said. Men judge more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see, but few can feel. Pause here. That sentence alone contains one of the most essential truths for anyone seeking influence. People respond to appearances, not inner truth. That does not mean you become deceitful or fake. It means you must understand the impact your image creates and manage it consciously. The world responds to what it sees. You decide what that vision will be. Think about your daily interactions. You walk into a room and immediately people form judgments about your confidence, your authority, your competence. They notice posture, eye contact, voice tone, the subtle rhythm of your gestures. You may feel perfectly composed inside, but if your body signals doubt, hesitation, or nervousness, people will act accordingly. You could have the best ideas, the clearest reasoning, the deepest integrity. But if your perception is weak, your influence crumbles. Most people underestimate this. They believe that competence or goodness will naturally shine through. They think honesty alone will command respect. But appearances are filtered through perception, and perception is inherently subjective. People project their expectations, fears, and biases onto you. You do not get credit for who you are. You get credit for who you appear to be. That is the subtle difference between being respected and being ignored. Now here is where mastery comes in. Controlling perception is not manipulation in a malicious sense. It is strategy. You choose the image you project intentionally, in alignment with your inner truth. You speak with clarity, act with composure, and maintain consistency between your words, actions, and demeanor. This is not about pretending to be someone you are not. It is about amplifying the aspects of yourself that demand respect and trust while minimizing signals that invite exploitation. Let's examine the contrast. Most people walk into social or professional settings and react to the environment rather than shaping it. They slouch when nervous, fidget when unsure, smile nervously to mask fear. Others see these micro-expressions and immediately assign labels: timid, anxious, inexperienced. A person who understands perception, however, walks in with deliberate posture, measured voice, and calm presence. They are aware of how every gesture communicates confidence and authority. The difference is subtle but profound. One appears vulnerable, the other commands attention. One is measured by others' judgment, the other shapes it. The deeper application is everywhere. In negotiation, perception of control often outweighs factual power. In leadership, perception of decisiveness inspires loyalty more than actual skill alone. In relationships, perception of emotional stability determines how people trust, respect, or test you. You can be equally skilled, equally ethical, and equally kind as others. Yet your influence is amplified or diminished by the lens through which you are viewed. This does not mean you become superficial or disconnected from reality. The key principle here is alignment. Perception and reality should reinforce one another. You cultivate a presence that mirrors your inner strength. You are consistent, predictable in your reliability, and deliberate in your signals. You allow people to see your authority, your composure, and your integrity without revealing every nuance of your inner workings. That subtle balance is the essence of strategic influence. Remember this: perception is the battlefield where most power is won or lost. You cannot control every opinion, but you can control the signals you send. The stronger and more deliberate your presence, the more people will respect, follow, and trust you. Power is not only in what you do, but in how others see what you do. Your reality matters, but their perception determines the consequences. Shape the way you are seen, and you shape the way you are treated. Control perception, and you control outcomes. Master this. And even in a world where truth is subjective and loyalty fleeting, you become unshakable, influential, and strategically unassailable. There are moments in life when hesitation is not just costly, it is fatal. Power does not reward the timid, the indecisive, or the overly sentimental. The world is relentless, and it does not pause for moral deliberation or emotional uncertainty. To survive and thrive, you must learn when to act with precision, clarity, and uncompromising purpose. This is the essence of controlled ruthlessness, the ability to strike decisively when necessary, while restraining impulse so that your action serves strategy, not ego, Machiavelli once said. A prince must have the wisdom to know when to be cruel and when to be merciful, and he must not hesitate in either choice. Pause here. That insight is timeless. It does not advocate cruelty for pleasure. It emphasizes discernment. Ruthlessness is a tool, a weapon that, when deployed at the right time, protects you, your goals, and those who depend on your authority. Misapplied, it destroys trust, erodes alliances, and ruins reputations. Mastered, it is a shield that enforces boundaries and a blade that cuts through chaos. Think about everyday scenarios. A colleague subtly undermines your project, but you have the evidence and influence to confront them. Many people hesitate, hoping the slight will go unnoticed or that kindness will resolve the conflict. They wait, they rationalize, they overthink, and by the time they act, the opportunity to assert authority is lost and the damage is done. Controlled ruthlessness means acting at the precise moment when your decision will be most effective. It is decisiveness guided by intelligence, not emotion. Here's the psychology behind it. Hesitation signals weakness. It communicates to others that you can be tested, manipulated, or ignored. Controlled ruthlessness signals strength. It demonstrates that you have boundaries, clarity, and confidence. The key is balance. The world respects those who can combine measured aggression with strategic patience. When you strike decisively, it is not out of anger or pride. It is because your objectives demand it, and you have the foresight to know that delayed action will cost more than immediate resolution. Most people get it wrong. They either avoid confrontation entirely, letting problems fester, or they act impulsively, creating unnecessary conflict. The difference is strategy. Instead of reacting emotionally, you evaluate the situation, consider consequences, and choose the moment when your intervention maximizes benefit and minimizes collateral damage. You act not to dominate indiscriminately, but to protect, to enforce, and to establish clarity. That is controlled ruthlessness in its purest form. Consider social and professional contexts. A leader who ignores repeated sabotage loses authority. A leader who retaliates rashly loses respect. A strategic approach is both precise and proportionate. You identify the source, measure the response, and execute action that restores balance and reinforces boundaries. In personal relationships, it works the same way. You cannot allow repeated disrespect, betrayal, or manipulation to continue unchecked. Controlled ruthlessness allows you to remove threats efficiently while maintaining moral alignment and long-term relationships wherever possible. This does not mean losing humanity. The key principle here is selective intensity. You wield force with awareness, not impulse. Mercy itself can be strategic. Showing restraint after asserting dominance signals confidence. It communicates that you are in control and that your actions are deliberate. Sometimes, choosing not to act aggressively is the more powerful display of control than striking immediately. Other times, decisive action is necessary to prevent larger harm. You learn the difference through observation, experience, and disciplined reflection. Remember this: the world rewards those who can act without hesitation when required, yet pause when restraint achieves greater outcomes. Controlled ruthlessness is mastery over your impulses, clarity in decision-making, and courage in action. It is not cruelty. It is precision. It is not domination. It is authority exercised responsibly. The truly powerful are those who strike decisively, act strategically, and balance force with foresight, knowing that every action carries consequences. When you combine this virtue with all the others, silence, perception, detachment, calculated kindness, you become a force that commands respect without fear, influence without aggression, and authority without losing your humanity. Controlled ruthlessness is the discipline of knowing when to wield the blade and when to sheath it. And in doing so, you protect yourself, your values, and your ultimate destiny. The most dangerous battlefield you will ever face is not a boardroom, a street, or a courtroom. It is the one inside your own mind. Every day, you confront a war between competing forces: morality and ambition, empathy and dominance, fear and courage. This is not an abstract idea. It is the reality of human existence. If you fail to master the war within, no amount of strategy, perception, or influence will protect you. You may climb, you may conquer, but eventually your inner chaos will betray you. True power is not in dominating others. It is in mastering the monster within before it masters you, Machiavelli once said. A man who wishes to act virtuously in every way must necessarily come to grief among so many who are not virtuous. Pause here. That is not an excuse for immorality. It is a warning. The world will not reward perfect morality. It will exploit it. And yet, Abandoning morality entirely destroys the self. The inner war is about balance. It is the ability to pursue ambition without losing integrity, to assert authority without sacrificing empathy, to act decisively without being consumed by pride. This is the hardest battle of all, because no one else fights it for you, and the consequences of failure are deeply personal. Think about daily life. You want to succeed at work, but you see opportunities that tempt you to cut corners or manipulate colleagues. You want to maintain meaningful relationships, but ambition nudges you toward decisions that might alienate those you care about. You feel the tug of anger, the pull of desire, the fear of failure. Most people surrender to these impulses. They justify actions, suppress emotions, or rationalize compromises. But when you fail to confront the inner conflict, you lose consistency, credibility, and ultimately self-respect. Mastering this inner war requires self-awareness, discipline, and reflection. You must observe the impulses that arise without immediately acting on them. You must name the conflict between ambition and conscience, between power and principle, and consider the long-term outcomes of every choice. The key is not suppressing emotions entirely, but directing them with precision. Fear can motivate caution, anger can fuel action, desire can inspire focus, all if you remain conscious of the forces within and do not allow them to dominate your reasoning. Most people handle this poorly. They let short-term impulses dictate decisions, confusing reactive behavior with strategic thinking. They let guilt, envy, or pride control the narrative of their lives. The result is inconsistency. A person who preaches values but compromises them, who seeks influence but is sabotaged by their own inner chaos. Instead, you can approach your internal conflicts like a general preparing for battle. You assess strengths and weaknesses, anticipate challenges, and cultivate strategies that align ambition with ethics and dominance with empathy. Now consider the application in broader life. In leadership, those who master their inner war inspire trust and loyalty. They are decisive yet fair, confident yet compassionate. In personal relationships, mastery allows you to set boundaries without cruelty, to pursue goals without sacrificing connection, and to respond to provocation without losing composure. In social dynamics, it gives you clarity to see manipulation without falling prey to it, to negotiate without compromising principles, and to act in ways that protect both your interests and your integrity. This is not an overnight process. Mastery requires constant vigilance. You must audit your decisions, confront failures honestly, and refine your strategies continually. Reflection and discipline become the weapons of the inner war. Daily habits, journaling, meditation, deliberate planning, and self-questioning reinforce your ability to act deliberately rather than react impulsively. Over time, these practices strengthen your mental resilience, moral clarity, and strategic insight. Remember this: victory in the inner war is not about defeating ambition or suppressing morality. It is about harmonizing them so that neither dominates at the expense of the other. It is about cultivating the self-command to pursue goals, exert influence, and navigate the world without losing your humanity. The truly powerful are those who confront the turbulence within, balance their instincts with intellect, and choose actions that align ambition with integrity. Mastering the inner war is the final virtue because it underpins every other. Without it, masks, detachment, silence, calculated kindness, perception, and controlled ruthlessness fall apart. With it, you achieve the rarest form of strength, power over the self, and through that, the power to act in the world without compromise. In the end, the battle within is the one that determines whether you remain human while standing powerful, or powerful while losing yourself.